podcast. We have a fun guest for you guys today. I don't think trading cards has been an area that we've explored yet on the show, about 450 episodes in. Alladan Flinn is an artist, musician, and entrepreneur who is fundamentally reshaping the physical collectibles market as the founder and CEO of Base Trading Cards. Alladan's mission sits right at the intersection of high-end physical art, Bitcoin philosophy, and hard asset economics. By combining elite craftsmanship using heat-receptive thermal inks, 3D holographic patterns, and physical security features with a strict digital meets analog mindset. He's teaching a new generation today about digital scarcity, low time preference, and physical asset ownership. Today, we're diving deep into the physical product marketing in a digital-first world, how to build a cult-like collector community, and turning art into a Trojan horse for financial education. Alladan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Dylan.
Yeah, let's go. So, for those that aren't familiar with Base Trading Cards, we'll get into it, and we'll get into a lot of these topics that we foreshadowed, but would love to know a little bit more about you and kind of what formed you and got you interested in this world. So maybe tell me a little bit about, where'd you grow up? What'd you study? And then how did you get excited about this world of physical digital assets and collectibles?
Yeah. So I grew up in a tiny little town in Northern California. I graduated a class of 15, the whole senior. So
wow.
Yeah, it doesn't get much smaller than that. But I always had big ideas growing up in this little town. It's like a lot of movies you see. You can't wait to get out and go do something. So that was me my whole life growing up. I've been a serial entrepreneur my entire life as well. So I started my first business at 17, was into music, writing, art, and I started accumulating a little digital studio in my office at that time was my closet in my dad's house. And then had some like local friends and bands that wanted to record what they were doing. So this was back on, we started out with cassette tape and then moved to CD. So that ages myself massively. But just always had that spirit in me of wanting to create something unique, something original. And I didn't want to do it for someone else necessarily. I wanted to do it for people, but I wanted to be my own boss at a very early age. So that was my initial takeoff point. And when it comes to cards, obviously, like many of us, collecting sports cards when I was younger, but then I got into Marvel comic cards. And that's where my artistic brain started going nuts. And I fell in love with the Marvel cards. Didn't have TV in the house growing up, so those physical trading cards were a way for me to be able to dive into those worlds and try to recreate the art. I mean, that was really my biggest takeoff point to trading cards.
That's cool. And then when did you think that you could align this kind of personal passion and your love for creativity and, music and art and comic books? When did you think that might be the kernel of inspiration for a business idea? And when did the idea of Base Trading Cards come to you?
Yeah, so bring it back to the entrepreneurship. I tried many different things, and I'd like to believe that a lot of them were really good ideas. But we, like many of us, we have our ups and downs, and I had to learn the hard way. And then closing down a business in 2017, I had already found Bitcoin in 2016 and didn't have the money at the time to invest. And it was one of those things where I need to know more about this before I start putting any money into it. At that time, I never invested. I mean, buy some silver and gold because dad keeps pushing you to do it. But I didn't know anything about economics. And when I found Bitcoin, I pay homage to Bitcoin because of the economic rabbit hole I went down. So I never tell somebody that they should buy Bitcoin. I'm not a firm believer in all the other cryptocurrencies and Web3. And I know there's going to be some amazing things that it does over time, but right now it's just trying to figure itself out. But Bitcoin itself, the principles behind Bitcoin, the finite supply, 100% transparency, proof of work, these were things that really caught my attention, but I didn't know much about it. So I went down this economic rabbit hole, and that's where I go, okay, everyone needs to know about Bitcoin. You don't need to buy Bitcoin, but you need to learn about Bitcoin, because that is the rabbit hole that finally took me from being a dreamer of an entrepreneur to actually putting things to work, because I finally understood economics. And I homeschool my kids, so I'm also a firm believer that the public school systems are not doing the best job of teaching our children about economics. So my thing was, I'm not technical, I'm an artist. How do I help people learn about economics and just sound money principles so that we can try to make the best decisions? It did so much for me. I wanted to give that to other people. And the Bitcoin tie-in is, again, paying homage to the rabbit hole I went down because of Bitcoin, and carrying over what makes Bitcoin such a great currency into trading cards. So again, finite supply, proof of work, 100% transparency, true scarcity. And I'm looking at the trading card industry I've been in for a couple decades. I'm like, well, where is that? We've got an incredible industry, but it lacks a lot of those sound money principles. And as trading cards start blowing up, we're in the biggest bull market we've ever been in collectibles, period. And I think a lot of that has to do with people going, okay, where do I invest my money? Stock market's at all-time highs. Cryptocurrency is incredibly dangerous for anyone out there. That it's incredibly dangerous. Bitcoin is the only one that I say look into. The rest of them, I'd say, well, you're gambling. But we don't touch the blockchain. We don't actually do anything digital with our cards whatsoever. We use Bitcoin in the name of the particular series that we're doing, because that is our way to, one, use an IP that is strong enough to get out there. When it comes to trading cards, you better have a strong IP. And then the other is, again, just paying homage to what brought me down this rabbit hole and took me to the next stage of my entrepreneurship, where I'm actually using a lot more of my brain power, knowing what's going on behind the scenes, rather than I've got a great idea, I'm just going to run out and hope it works.
I love it. So talk about some of the Bitcoin principles and how you apply those to base trading cards. And, I don't understand all the specifics, but what I do know is that generally collectibles go up in value because they're scarce and there's not going to be more of them. And as they get damaged or kind of taken off the market, that finite supply increases value, but also just over time, value increases. And I love that idea of kind of like, looking at the broader economy and looking at all these different things that are maybe overvalued, right? Like stock market is an all-time high. Real estate's never been more expensive. Gold is at who knows what it was. 30% correction, but still at all-time highs as well. And then kind of this explosion in interest in collectibles. I saw it in the fine cigar market that I did a lot of collecting in during kind of the bull runs. So what were some of the cards and collectibles have already had an amazing run, but what was it about the kind of current ecosystem that you thought wasn't really quite matching up to some of the Bitcoin principles, and how do you apply that to, a collectible card, business model?
Yeah. So I like to look at it like the trading cards is the playground classroom for economics. And when I go to these card shows, it's amazing. I see 9-year-old kids walking around with a little bag, and they're pulling out $100 bills left and right, and they're wheeling and dealing right there at the shows, and they're incredible. So this inspires me as a father to go, there's really something to this industry and the way of teaching kids about just the basics of money, how to complete a transaction with someone, how to figure out what value something might have. When it comes to where we're at in the trading card world right now, a lot of it is just lack of transparency. Very similar to how almost any government in the world prints money. Thing happening, but I think the number one thing that brings value to these collectibles, you said it really well. It's decades of destruction of the cards so that there can actually be some scarcity. PSA is great for anyone that doesn't know. This is where you get your cards graded, and they create a pop report. And that pop report, you can go in and see how many of any particular card has been graded. So with a lot of these companies never telling you how many cards they print, you do have the option to go on PSA, look at the pop report and go, okay, well, there's only been 36 of these cards ever graded. If that's a special card and there's only 36 graded, then we know there's not a whole lot of these running around the wild. So you could look at all those different aspects, but at the end of the day, it's nostalgia. That could be done overnight. Potentially, it could be done over decades. One Piece is a manga that has been out for, I believe, over 10 years, and it didn't have a whole lot of hype. They finally came out with trading cards, and boom, it blew up like crazy. So the biggest thing I'm noticing right now, I was just talking to a friend yesterday. So your grandparents have these collectibles in their house, and it really means something to them. Let's call it a porcelain lamp. Antiques, and they love it because maybe it was passed down through generations. But then the next generation is like, Grandpa, the last thing I'm doing is putting that porcelain lamp in the house. It's hideous. So I'm sorry, when it's your time, I'm probably going to sell that lamp if you pass it down. So we have to look at where these next generations are going. What do they love? What are they interested in? Because it does come down to that nostalgic feeling. Grandpa loves the lamp because he remembers his dad or his mom or someone that passed it down to him. And maybe the grandson never met them. So there's no nostalgic attachment to that item. So these are the things that I'm looking at in the collectible industry and really seeing this kidult thing happening. So a lot of us, I age myself, I'm 43. So when I grew up, it was in the 80s and the 90s and the cartoons and what we were experiencing back then. It was very scarce. So that's a beautiful thing. You missed the Ninja Turtles episode. I mean, you missed it. Like you're gonna
or like Saturday morning cartoons or X-Men. It's like, once a week if you were lucky. Now you go on streaming services and you can binge watch the entire thing. And it's pretty cool. Like I see like regularly in the Apple iTunes store in the top 100 trending shows, it's, a lot of these subjects that you're talking about, like nostalgic TV, nostalgic cartoons, manga and anime. It's pretty, it seems like that category has a huge, share of the, top most watched or at least most purchased items in the Apple ecosystem, which is kind of my barometer for what's interesting or important, right? What is it people willing to pay for to watch?
Yes. Yeah, but I think right now we're just in major content inflation. So inflation, we're getting the content inflation like crazy as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so you talked about this idea of understanding the basics of money, and kind of this being a teaching asset. I love the homeschool thing. My kids are homeschooled as well. Tell me a little. Is it gamified? Is it like like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, where I can not only just collect the cards and they have value because how rare they are and scarcity, but they also have a utility to a game? Tell me more about the mechanics of the teaching idea.
Okay, I'm going to be incredibly corny here, Dylan.
Sure, let's go.
The game is the game of life.
I love it.
So yeah, when you're ripping these cards, you're learning about asset versus liability. What is FOMO? What is dollar cost average? Nothing opinion based at all. Literally just throwing the facts out there. We went a little hard on some of the cards to throw some facts out there that might be a little controversial, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's anyone that can deny it at the same time. This is the particular series I've been doing for the last few years. As an entrepreneur, the best advice I can give someone is don't get over your skis and really test the market, learn everything you can before you go too far. If you've got a massive investor, maybe it's a different story, but when you're starting out, you really need to take your time and learn as much as you can about the industry. So I started really small with an orange pill in a pack. 21,000 packs once a year. That's this particular series that is really educational in so many ways. And then what I've been working on behind the scenes is a larger series taking me back to where I'm even more passionate, which is storytelling. So the next stage of what I'm doing is putting this education out, but not like art on one side that is conceptual, that's supposed to inspire you. Art is the universal language. And then on the back, it gives you some cliff notes. What I've been creating is called 21 Dimensions. And this is where I go more into a Star Wars fantasy world to tell a story, very similar to if you watched He-Man or G.I. Joe's growing up. At the end of every episode, they'd have this quick little 30-second spot, and it's where they would tell you the lesson of the day. So I'm not going to go quite as corny because I know the next generation probably wouldn't enjoy it as much as I think we did when we were kids. But that same premise of learning these values are in the stories I'm telling, but in a way that is more on that anime style, very artistic, very hard hitting, so that the kids can get in and enjoy it. And Trojan Horse, like little do they know, they're learning some very valuable lessons in these stories. And then that's where the trading cards will follow. And I'm creating something that's never been done before when it comes to gamifying this next stage. And I can't say too much on it quite yet, but at the end of the day, it's finding a way to Trojan Horse educate as many people as possible. It's not just kids. I mean, we know with the economy right now that there's a lot of people that need just some basic facts so they can start clicking that critical thinking in their mind.
I love it. Let's talk about physical engineering and kind of the manufacturing process. So, you've partnered with printing giants like RRD to create cards using thermal inks, 3D holographic cast and cure finishes, and light reactive elements, winning major manufacturing awards along the way. We're kind of in this world where craft is maybe, losing its novelty to some degree and quality when, AI is creating things fast and cheap. How important has it been for you to invest in the top tier of the manufacturing space within your industry to make sure that you get a lot of brand equity and secondary market value?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely everything. When you have a brand, especially when you're building an IP, I mean, it's different if you have a product and the IP doesn't matter, but when you're focusing on a story and trying to get people to fall in love with the character and the story, going above and beyond with quality is sadly something there's not a whole lot of competition. I mean, there's some great brands out there. One Piece is one of them that's doing some incredible work on their cards. But like you said, the world is getting very, very fast. And in Bitcoin, we talk about the Bitcoin community. We talk about craftsmanship quite a bit, that proof of work. And you can go back into the 1800s, early 1900s, and buildings and houses were built to last a lifetime. And nowadays, KB home style, sorry, I didn't mean to throw out them, but manufactured homes are definitely hurting the buyers. We're in the home within an average of 10 to 15 years, you're starting to remodel. So
crazy.
That craftsmanship is so important. And I call it the digital detox. I think we're coming into a stage where my dream is the same way cigarettes became taboo. I mean, it used to be smoke a cigarette in a restaurant, you got your kids sitting right next to you. And now it's like, oh my God, you're a terrible person, which rightly so. But I'm hoping that we kind of have that same evolution when it comes to our cell phones and our devices, where if you're sitting at a dinner table with your family and all of you are sitting on devices, it's going to look taboo. Or if you're at the park with your kid, I get it if your wife is calling, but for the most part, like, you're at the park with your kid, focus. And I think this is something that a lot of people are coming to. And that brings us to why the trading card industry and collectibles are blowing up. It's an in-person environment where we're coming together around a shared common hobby that we all love. It's multi-generational, which is the coolest part to me out of everything. Grandma or grandpa passed down their collectibles. I mean, it's that story we were talking about a few minutes ago. That it's very, very special. And I think this is hopefully where a lot of the world is going to be heading towards, at least a balance, right? Because right now I don't see any balance. We're just zombies to the phones.
Yeah, I was flying to Cannes this year and sat next to a gal who happened to be going to Cannes as well to the Cannes Lions Creativity Festival. And, we kind of connected over, the industry and, what we were both going to be doing there. And then when we were kind of done chatting, she pulled out a magazine and read a magazine on a plane. And I used to remember I'm about your age. And when I used to travel in the early days of my career, there was no smartphones, there was no Wi-Fi. And if you didn't have a magazine or a book or a newspaper, you were raw dogging, the flight. You were staring at the back of the seat. And man, it was, so fun to grab the most recent, Men's Journal or Maxim magazine or, something that you were going to see great art, great stories, great ads. Even the ads were actually worth looking at least at some point, and that before it became half the book. But I do see, this kind of movement back to analog, like you said, whether, I was in Target the other day with my daughters and there's a whole vinyl section of Target now, right? Whether it's music, collecting, vintage clothes or whatever you're into, there's a physical representation of how to go out and do treasure hunting and stuff like that. And I do agree with you. I think it's because people want to put down the phone, go out in the real world, have real experience with their friends and family. So I love that thinking. So, all right. So, in the collectible world, your brand survival relies heavily on the secondary market, how cards are graded, resold, and valued by the community over time. How do you approach supply and demand marketing to ensure that your limited edition drops build long-term collector trust rather than, like you said, feeling like a cash grab with maybe some of these non-Bitcoin based crypto models?
Yeah. You have to take the time to say, I'm only going to produce, at least during each launch, what I think the community room you have, the amount of customers you have. So, and that's for trading cards specifically. I don't think that's a great model for much any other products you're trying to produce out there. But if you're going for collectibles, then you definitely don't want to oversaturate the market. There has to be a good supply and demand balance. So again, that's me taking my time to make sure that I hone everything in. The quality is beyond anything else out there. I mean, you're competing with giants, then you have to compete with giants. And that means you've got to figure out something that is going to be the next big thing that gives people a reason to go after your product versus a brand that they've recognized forever. So I really think that balancing that scarcity, it's very difficult because the price, obviously, when you're producing smaller amounts, then your costs are a lot heavier, but quality is everything. And then just not overprinting and being 100% transparent. This is very difficult for bigger brands, and maybe they don't need to because they have a wide enough audience, and there is something to giving too much information that could potentially hurt your brand. But I think finding that balance early on and working your way up, build the foundation, and don't get ahead of your skis.
Love it. All right. A lot of modern direct consumer brands throw money at Meta and Google ads to force top of funnel conversion. You've taken a more grassroots culture first approach to customer acquisition in your marketing. What does your actual marketing stack or process look like? And how do you turn a casual customer into an active brand ambassador?
Yeah, I think with collectibles, it really comes down to word of mouth, proof in your community, proof that there are people out there excited about your cards. We've been completely organic. I mean, we've tried a few ads, but we've kind of struck out. The product's name is Bitcoin trading cards, and the only thing that any of the algorithms see is Bitcoin and trading.
So you just get kind of the self-policed models strike it down. Yeah, just because of the name of the product, even though it doesn't have anything to do with selling actual coins. Just the name association is enough to get you flagged in the algorithm, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though it's a physical product and we don't touch the blockchain, we definitely get flagged as a Bitcoin exchange with Bitcoin trading in there. So we have changed the name to Base Trading Cards. That's one of the reasons, for many other reasons as well. But the product that I currently have been making is still called Bitcoin Trading Cards. So yeah, definitely thinking through the name as much as possible. I don't think many people have the same issue as I have with this one, but the name is everything. So marketing wise, I mean, yeah, the name is huge. So an example would be on X, we've been building for years under Bitcoin Trading Cards. So that's the current audience that recognizes us. And then we rebranded to Base Trading Cards. So I think a lot is just going in person and getting people to know who you are, so that they know it's not a money grab. You can talk on X or whatever social media all you want, but at the end of the day, you have to actually connect with real people that can actually vouch for you, whether that is the collectors or the artists or the influencers in that particular space. I highly recommend, if you're going organic, go in person as much as you can and meet these people. That's how you get on podcasts. That's how you get out there. It's the community. And once the community is backing you, other people will see that and they'll start to come in, see that validation and give it a chance.
Can you talk about how you partner with artists? Because I think that's an important component that maybe in the old days, which artists you hired to do the illustrations on your cards, whether there were card games or collectibles, was kind of, not so much of a marketing opportunity. It was just, the quality and the recognizability of the style of those artists. But now all those artists have their own followings, and people, pay attention to the projects that they work on and the things that they do. So can you talk about artist selection and how you work with artists, and what's the calculus that goes into that?
Yeah, so I do things a lot different. I'm not sure there's another brand out there that does it quite the way that I do. Most collectibles, IPs, they're focused on one style, and what they're going to run across everything. Where me being a lover of art as much as I am, I love all kinds of styles. And excuse me, one of the things I noticed, I think everyone has their particular style that they're really into. So when I created this, I wanted to bring in many different mediums, artists that have styles that are completely different than another artist. So I do a lot of conceptual designs. I come up with the concept, sketch out the basic idea, and then from there, I've got an image that just starts forming in my mind of the style this needs to be. Is it cartoony with super bright colors? Is it more realism? And then I've got a bunch of different artists. In the beginning, it was a lot more difficult because many artists were not what I was hoping for, and had to spend the money and then start all over. But now I'm at the point where I've got a really nice portfolio of artists. And once that concept and that style comes into my mind, I go immediately, okay, this is perfect for this particular artist. So we go back and forth, give them the sketch, artist brief on what I want them to do. And we just go back and forth until they bring it to life with the whatever I'm dreaming in my mind as much as possible. And then giving credit where credit's due. I think that's a very important one nowadays. Especially like you said, these artists have their own social media. And unless you're keeping them busy with a full-time job, you want your artists to be successful. You want them to be happy to come back to you. So we really put out as much content as we can around the artist. On the back of every card we create, there's the artist name on the back so that you can go find them. There's been a lot of artists that I've worked with that were commissioned by community members and businesses where they saw the art in the cards. I think that's an incredibly important thing for especially early brands that are trying to start out. Work together. Biggest thing that we can do when we're trying to find success is come together and unite, and then the success is for each of us. And you never know, one of the artists could end up blowing up, and then that's why your secondary market blows up, because you have this particular artist in your cards.
Yeah, it almost becomes like fine art collectibles in addition to card collectibles.
Right.
All right. You created an entire experience box kit containing white gloves, gold-plated master keys, and leather binders to turn unboxing into an event. In an era where e-commerce packaging is usually boring, How does investing heavily in the physical unboxing workflow pay for itself in organic word of mouth and UGC?
Yeah, the idea behind this was, it was really like, how do I produce something that's never been done before? And how do I take what I'm seeing in the industry and maybe try to fill a gap? So find a need, fill a need. And one of the biggest things that I've been noticing, the live shopping is massive, whatnot, fanatics. I mean, it's just blowing up. And when these collectors are going through their hobby boxes with multiple packs, you rip the box open, you rip your first pack, and you just start spreading those cards, hoping for something, excuse me, hoping for something really special. But you can go through a $100 hobby box or $300 hobby box in 10 minutes, especially on online shopping, because it's all about volume. So I created this hobby box to, again, the digital detox. How can I create something that gives the collector an experience that lasts potentially hours, where every piece, every exploration of this box is part of the experience? And it's not one that you want to experience alone. You like, even if your wife isn't into trading cards, you're like, honey, I'm not going to tell you how much this costs, but I want you to come in here and check me, the kids as well. So it was a marketing play in a lot of ways. We created, there's a car inside. So once you're going through this whole box, you're going to find this 5-pound paperweight. It's a massive composite of a 2021 Dodge Challenger Scat Pack. And you take the car and you have to crack it open. And this was all thanks to RRD. They're insane. And if I didn't have the relationship with them I have, they would have laughed me out of the room. I think the first few meetings we had, they were going, you want me to make a car, and you want the car to be able to open, and you want a pack of trading cards inside the car, and you want that inside a box with like 20 other things. You're mad. But they stuck with me on the whole thing, and the experience has been incredible for people. Again, it's one that is unlike anything out there. And if you're going grassroots, if you don't have the budget to go all the way in and compete with the big guys, then you need to have the product that does it on its own. You don't have to sell somebody on this product. You set it on a table and it basically sells itself.
That's awesome. We talked a little bit about this, but you're currently expanding the brand and the base universe beyond trading cards. You talked about this next edition, or this next project, being very story bound and kind of, exposing your collectors to a new world. But it sounds like you guys are also moving into graphic novels and deeper narrative lore. From a product expansion standpoint, how do you decide when the brand has earned the right to kind of jump into a new media format without diluting the core product that built your original fan base?
Yeah, so in trading cards specifically, I would say, I'm just spitballing here, but from what I've seen, it's probably around 80% companies that are just buying up IP. And then they're using that IP to create trading cards. And that's great. I think that's like the majority of what's out there, because like we talked about before, there needs to be a nostalgic connection for people who really want to buy these. So with me expanding into this next set, it's really not trying to completely recreate the game, but looking at what has been successful. Again, find a need. And I live and breathe this industry. Been at it for a long time, and I see what collectors are asking for. I've actually been on phone calls and met in person with at least 150 of my customers over the years, and some of them have become some of my best friends on earth. So understanding what the collector wants and not what the company wants. Principles over profits. And you have a really good opportunity to get people interested in what you're doing, because you're building specifically for the collector. So I wouldn't have come out with this any sooner. I've taken the time. I mean, even with what I'm doing, I'm constantly pivoting. I'm constantly revising as I go, to the point of really hoping the best of my ability. By the time this comes out, I have done enough market research, done enough conversations with collectors and been to enough shows to have a really clear idea of what the industry is looking for right now. And that telling the story is everything. So creating a comic book first, I don't think it's wise to do it without it. You need to get people invested into your character. It's not just the storyline. At the end of the day, the characters are the main thing that people get attached to and get attracted to. So putting out the comic book first, testing it, making sure that the characters are strong enough to be able to follow it with the TCG we've been building. As long as you're again building that foundation and taking your time, I think there's a big opportunity right now for new creatives in the entire entertainment world. Say it right. I guess to say the premise is a lot of us are complaining about a lot of movies that come out, and a lot of the television shows are just reenactments of what has already been done. And I think there's a big opportunity right now for people that want to get creative and put out an IP that has the opportunity to be the next big thing.
Yeah, that's cool. And also entering, Spider-Man just the largest box office in history. I think a lot because they, recenter their storytelling on this idea of the everyman and the most, the hero's journey, and follow, a more traditional, expansive idea of like, what does it mean to have a superhero movie is accessible to the widest possible audience. I think became pretty interesting. Marvel seems to be back on track, at least from a financial perspective. All right, we've talked about trading cards having a unique power to bridge, generations, baby boomers, millennials, and Gen Z, connecting to 90s nostalgia, element of cryptography. How do you structure your storytelling and art direction so it resonates with the diehard Bitcoiners without alienating traditional crypto card collectors?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to the art style and really being able to capture the culture and make it something that is relatable, not just people in Bitcoin, not just people in crypto, but far and wide. So memes is one of the things I like to say. The meme is mightier than the pen. It used to be the pen is mightier than the sword. I think the meme is mightier than the pen in today's world with what is going on with social media. So I definitely try to study the meme culture as much as possible so that I can create concepts in a way. I mean, that's the beauty of a meme. It's an artistic way of telling a story. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to do with my cards, is make it something that can resonate to people. I mean, far beyond Bitcoin. Only I'd say 10 to 20% of the cards I produce in the set are about Bitcoin. The other 80 to 90% are about freedom, economics, family values, the hope and dream of what Bitcoin can produce someday. That's really where the focus needs to be. Again, my biggest win when I found Bitcoin was not Bitcoin, not investing in Bitcoin, not the early investment, none of that. The win that I took from it was going down the rabbit hole and understanding the importance of low time preference, the importance of how to invest your time, not even understanding throughout my life that the time I'm putting out to work for this paper dollar that we use is time away from my friends and family. So coming together and finally going, oh, so cash or currency is time. I'm exchanging my time for this currency. Something that basic, once you get it, it starts to change how you think about everything. Relationships get better. Family relationships get better. You start spending more time with the people you enjoy. One of the things that really changed me in many ways was learning that some of the most intelligent people on earth have the smallest friend group. And at first, I'm like, how does that work? And then I start really digging into this concept. And it's because the more friends you have, the less time you have to cultivate really strong relationships, because you only have so much time. You're spreading it across all people. Then none of these relationships are going to have the time needed to really cultivate something that can last a lifetime. So zoning in on those people that have always been there for you and cultivating those relationships, that was one of the biggest wins of my life, is not spreading that time out. And a lot of it is just my immediate family, my wife and kids, my parents. And that has been a massive change in my life. So sorry, long roundabout rant, but the cards are so much more than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And if you can resonate with people on more of a value system, I think that it really is, it's for everyone.
Let's talk about this idea of low time preference and how it translates to business. In the crypto spaces, everyone expects 100 times gains overnight, which often is poor product quality and short-term decision making. You preach a low time preference mindset, sacrificing short-term profit, cultural impact. How do you maintain that discipline when operating in such a fast-moving, driven category?
Yeah, I mean, I learned early on, being in Bitcoin as long as I've seen so many things take many years to finally take off. It takes off, and the candle is literally just a candle, and it's dead the next day. So seeing that scared the crap out of me after living through a couple, or even the first bull market, and seeing how fast things can pump overnight, and then 24 hours later they're dead in the water. I definitely don't want to be attached to that. So NFTs took off and boomed. I didn't really have that same connection that I think a lot of people in the crypto space saw with NFTs. Again, I'm more of that physical in real life kind of person, and a JPEG only does so much for me. So I was offered early on some incredible opportunities with some very big companies that wanted to turn the cards into NFTs. And I used my low-time preference and my values and said, this could definitely expedite where I'm going, but I don't want to create something that could literally die in a week, in 24 hours. So I never touched NFTs. I never touched any of the cryptocurrency stuff, never did anything on the blockchain. I've got a competitor out there that produces something similar to what I'm doing. I don't think their quality is anywhere near ours, but a lot of what they're doing is putting a redemption in their cards. So you have a chance to win a whole Bitcoin, you have a chance to win some Ethereum and all these other cryptocurrencies, but that ends up being their ultimate marketing angle, because the quality of the cards, quality of the art, none of that's there, but they are completely, I mean, give credit where credit's due. They're outdoing me and outpacing me massively because of that chase. But I'm seeing now in their communities, there's a beautiful community was built. A lot of people came in, they loved it, and now they're moving on to Series 6. And there's a lot of people in their community going, I'm over it. I'm done. I'm tired of this, where our community, we still have the same OGs that came in at the beginning, incredibly happy, a big part of the community. I feel, for me, if you give your community a product they can be proud of and stand behind, then the community is going to be happy. If you create crap in any way, the community is going to start battling and infighting. You might have some that are going to support you to the end of the earth because they've invested so much money in your product, they have to try to keep it alive. But if you just do it right across the board, take your time and don't get in a rush, you have the chance to build something that can last a lifetime. It's like the buildings. Take your time. It may cost more. It may take a decade versus a year to put that building up, but that building's going to be around for centuries.
Yeah, I like that. As high-end collectible scale and value, counterfeiting and IP theft become massive threats, you've implemented high security manufacturing protocols, usually reserved for financial documents. How important is physical brand security in building trust for an emerging, luxury or collectible brand?
I think it's one of the most important things you can do. That's where link up with a good producer. It's not just what you're putting on the cards, but it's the security of the facility that the cards are getting printed in. And that's with any collectible. The last thing you want to do is work with a producer that could potentially leak, whether it's your printing plates or your files. And then going the extra mile when it comes to putting the embellishments on the cards that will basically make it nearly impossible for anyone to knock them off. I think that's, especially in today's world. I mean, you can get incredible printers that maybe 5 years ago would have cost you $100,000. Now you can pick it up for $5,000 and put it in your office. And if you hone your skills, you can knock off quite a bit. But there's still so many things that can never be reproduced without working with a massive manufacturer. And again, that's just taking care of your community at the end of the day. Creating something that has a lot more difficulty to be able to be reproduced or impossible to be reproduced gives your collectors, and whether call them investors, into the product, that confidence that says, this is something that I can hold on to long term and not have to worry that there's going to be 1,000 reproductions of these popped out anytime soon, because technology is only going to get better. It's only going to get easier and easier for people to knock these cards off in the future. So don't wait for that to happen. Get ahead of it.
All right. We hear endless talk from tech CEOs about metaverse, virtual reality, and digital assets, but sitting in your chair leading a physical products business booming in 2026, what is the single biggest truth about human psychology and physical ownership that the digital advertising industry is sleeping on?
I would say in-person events. I just got back from the National in Chicago. I think there was around 150,000 people. The camaraderie and community that's being built around this is incredible. Fanatics just did Fanatics Fest. It was a massive win. Comic-Con is blowing up again in ways that haven't been seen since the 90s. I think there's a lot of companies, for whatever reason, are trying to really push us into this digital world. We saw it in 2020. It was a very sad situation for the entire world to be separated from friends and family. And I think we came out of it as a human race. We really came out of it, if anything, wanting that connection back, and not texting someone, but picking the phone up and actually making that phone call. I hate that it happened, but it was one of those wake-up calls I think the majority needed to see, because we were heading in a pretty terrible trajectory. I think there's a balance that we can have, and I think the tech giants don't quite see the balance. They're making their decisions on the stock price, which, I mean, it's understandable. That's everything they're working towards. But when you have decisions being made by the board over the value of the stock versus decisions being made for their community, for their customers, I think there's a lot of tech giants that are going to lose out on what's coming. And if they were smart, they would really be focusing on in-person human connectivity, because I think that's the next wave of where we're going and why nostalgia is blowing up so heavily right now.
I love it. Well, it's a great prediction. I hope one that comes true. Alladan, thanks. I really appreciate you coming on. Fascinating what you're building. Want to more about the cards, or stay in touch and follow where do you want to send people to stay in touch?
Yeah, basedtradingcards.com. That's where you can start to learn more about what we're doing. And then we're all over all the other social medias. You're going to see a lot of nostalgia posts from us. We really try to tie in that nostalgia with the product. Again, that's the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here. Educate and bring some fun and enlightenment. So yeah, go to the website. It's a great place. If you're on social medias, just look up Base Trading Cards and you'll find us there. And yeah, I just hope and love to everyone out there. We have an amazing opportunity ahead of us. We just need to come together as humanity. No more of the battling. We are all one.
I love it, man. Great message. Well, for those of you who are following along at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe. If you're listening, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on is how we find a bigger audience. So go ahead and do that if you're so obliged. And last but not least, if there is a Bitcoin enthusiast or a collectibles enthusiast, or maybe an entrepreneur that just wants to learn a little bit more about how the real world can have a big impact on the way that they tell their brand story and their marketing and how people see value in real things. Don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will wish you a great day. Appreciate you coming on.